I don't know what to say.
It's all right, man. Just let the music take you away.
Let the music take me away. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 13 of the Really, Really Badly podcast. Today, about a week late on the whole topic of thankfulness. However, I think that thankfulness should be a 365 days a year topic. So, we're talking about it today, why we think it's important, why we think it's good to be grateful, and how it can improve your life in quite a many ways. And that's going to be today.
Yes, indeed. As always, we appreciate a comment, or if you have any thoughts on the subject, give us an email at reallybadlypodcast@gmail.com. We are about to prep an episode responding to some of the awesome emails that we've gotten so far. So if you have any thoughts on this episode or any of the past episodes and you've been meaning to drop us a line, now would be the time to do it. So again, that's reallybadlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment on our website. Just go to whatever episode you'd like to leave a comment on, and there's a little form at the bottom.
Yeah.
So do it.
Do it.
Do it now.
All right. Awesome. So.
Alrighty. How was your Thanksgiving, Travis?
Well, I was working.
Oh.
So, no, it's okay.
That sucks.
No. It really wasn't that bad. They bought us a meal. It was like the slowest day at work ever, because like the flights ended really early in the day. So it was just kind of like a nice slow day. We all hung out and ate some food because they bought us food, which was really nice.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Megan was down in Durango visiting a friend for Thanksgiving, so she wasn't here anyway. So it was good, you know. It was good for being a work week. But yeah, did you even celebrate Thanksgiving, for U.S. Thanksgiving?
Many people probably don't know this, but Canadian Thanksgiving is way earlier, like a month ago earlier. So no, I did not celebrate American Thanksgiving because I was working. I did get a nice call from my parents, though. They were up at the cabin. My brother called too.
Oh, sweet.
So that was nice. But yeah, the Thanksgiving we had a month ago was really nice. We had a bunch of friends over, and we cooked a lot of food, and we went around. Nathan, one of my roommates, is he's a teacher. I think he teaches fourth grade right now. It's probably wrong, but he often will break out in these random like kids songs and things like that, just because he does it for work all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you or any of our listeners have heard of that song, We Are Thankful for Everything. It's like this song that goes in the round, and it's like this really, like, we are thankful for everything, we are thankful for everything, we are thankful for everything, we're thankful for everything. And then three people will go, I am thankful for cranberry sauce, I am thankful for...
Okay.
Whatever. And so it goes all the way around. So he started it. And like just with him and two others, and it turned into the entire room, like 20 of us, all adults, like full-grown adults, singing this like kids song about what we're thankful for. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is fantastic.
That's awesome. That's hilarious. Nice.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad you guys got to do something. It's pretty cool.
So yeah, so you kind of came up with this idea of like with thankfulness or with Thanksgiving on the horizon.
On the horizon. Well, yeah. So, I mean, so the idea of like thankfulness, or I like the word gratitude a little better, has been on my mind since I moved out on my own, like a little over a year ago, I guess. No, it's been about a year and a half maybe. But anyway, that's kind of like when I've been like thinking about this topic. And then of course with Thanksgiving coming up, I was like, oh, we should do something about this, because it's something that I've just noticed it's like, it's been one of those like mindsets or attitudes that have like, I don't know, kind of like altered just like my direction or like perception or like way of dealing with life, that I think has been like incredibly helpful. over the last year. And I think that it's something that is just really, really important and definitely not talked about as much as it maybe should be. I mean, yeah, we talk about it around Thanksgiving and stuff, and we like say what we're thankful for. And then, you know, the next day we're out trampling people in Walmarts to go buy more stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny how like, so yeah, we talk about it, but it's almost like this kind of afterthought. Oh, we just talk about it just because, and we don't actually like sit down and like really talk about it in our culture and like what it means and like how it can be used and how much of a powerful mindset it can be, which I think is funny because yeah, we have like one of these bigger holidays for it, and it seems like we really don't understand kind of what we're even talking about, I guess. So yeah, so that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, obviously because of the timing, but also because I think it's a really, really important and powerful topic. So
cool. Yeah. And I guess just if you have somewhere you'd like to start, feel free to start there. But
sure.
Yeah. Do you want to just take it? Or
yeah. Okay. So the first time that I've kind of ever like encountered this like idea of like truly having like a grateful or attitude of gratitude. I hate that because it like rhymes and sounds like a child's thing. But
I don't think I've ever heard that before.
I definitely read it while I was reading articles about it. But okay. The first time I ever like met someone who had just a deeper understanding of what it meant to be grateful or have like a just grateful outlook or just be thankful for what you have was my resident director in college. I got to be an RA for him for a year. And so I kind of got to know him pretty well. Really cool guy. Daniel Van Valkenburg, if you happen to be listening, thank you. You've probably had more impact on my life than you realize. But he had this phrase that he would say, and he would basically say, I'm not going to get this perfect, but the idea was basically that we live like kings in this first world America that we live in. You know, he'd always talk about just like how absolutely blessed he was in all the things that he had and the things that he got to do and his job and his relationships and all of that. And when you think about it, I mean, it's super true. Like if you think about the things that we have, like we live like kings. Like, you know, you think like back in the day, like medieval times, we literally have a better standard of living than people back then. You know, like the kings of those days, like, yeah, they might have had power and people working for them and all that stuff, but they could never dream of, you know, walking inside at night and flipping on a light switch and having light and just going and like, you know, the sink faucet, just turn that thing and you have warm water. Like that's kind of mind blowing, you know, like we get to use, you know, the where we go to the bathroom is in the same room that we clean ourselves, and that's like totally fine because we have a system to take care of that stuff and keep it separate and like I mean it's kind of like if you really actually sit down and think about it, it's pretty amazing, and we really do live like kings. Not to say that we don't have troubles, not to say that everything's amazing, right? However, if you take a step back and look at things as a whole, I mean we really have it freaking good. And so, yeah, so that's kind of this first encounter I had with this idea. And I think back in college, I was like, oh, yeah, that's true, but didn't really give it much thought. And it wasn't until I moved out that I really, like, understood, like, oh, like, I have so much. And I think the reason for that is I think sometimes you appreciate what you have when you've kind of worked for it yourself. I think you understand, like, how amazing it actually is that I can drive 10 minutes and buy like all the food I could ever want for the week and come home and then like throw it in a refrigerator and it stays good for a couple weeks. Like you really kind of understand like, whoa, like that actually is kind of mind-bogglingly incredible. And so, yeah, when I moved out, I just like, I don't know what it was. It's one of those things where I think it wasn't necessarily me like consciously being like, oh, let me think of the ways that I'm grateful, but just throughout my day, I would realize like I would have these moments every time I drive to Walmart to go to the grocery store when I was living in Nevada. I would just be like, this is amazing. Like this is 10 minutes away. I have a car that gets me there like in no time. I buy my stuff, I come home, and then I can cook it right here. And it's like like I can do this all after work. Like I don't spend my entire day worrying about like preparing my food, you know, like I just go to the store, grab it, come home, make it, done. And it's like, I would just have these moments of like, man, like we are so well off. Like we're so blessed to be in this situation. And from there, it just, I don't know, it just kind of grew. And I think it's one of those mindsets that has just helped improve like so many areas of my life, which I'll get into from a really, really, really great article that I found. So that's kind of, yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, just the standard of living, like you said, not every, there are still a lot of problems and not everyone has the same amount, but yeah, just the standard of living is just insane what we have on a day-to-day basis. I remember hearing what you said just reminded me of something I heard a missionary say once. Our church was visited by a missionary who had just recently adopted a young girl from Thailand, I think. Mm-hmm. And he said that the thing that she's most excited about, she is ecstatic every morning because she runs downstairs and she says, "I just took a shower and the hot water is glorious," is the word she used, just for a shower, something that we get to do every day. And I thought that was such a cool reminder. Like, yeah, I can feel rejuvenated every morning, just with this.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah, we all have.
Yeah. And this is one of those things again, where I think it's kind of like when you're a kid or growing up, or when you're not the one who's like doing the things to get to have these luxuries, you don't realize it. Cause I remember, back in like, 6th grade, 5th grade, it's like, oh, I have to take a shower. Like I'm being made to do this thing that like people like it blows their mind. Like other people, how great this thing is. And it's funny, when we were just this last week, I was listening to an episode of a podcast I listened to about economics, and they were talking about this guy, Tim Taylor, an economist who ran this thought experiment. And I couldn't find his like thought experiment out on the internet. So I don't know if he's ever written about it or not, but I'm just going to read this excerpt from this podcast. The podcast is called Econ Talk. Yeah, sounds super, super cool, right? It's actually pretty good and it's pretty fascinating. But so I guess this guy, Tim Taylor, was a former guest, and basically he did this like thought experiment. So he asked someone, okay, would you rather have $70,000 today, or would you rather have $70,000 in 1900? So what's and they just like, what's your first, like, would you rather have 70 grand today or in the 1900s? What's your first thought?
Ooh, shoot, that's tough. I'll say 1900.
Okay.
I guess.
And what's your first reason?
Because it was probably a ton of money back then.
Right. Okay. And that's what he says, right? Yeah. And he says like most people answer like 1900 because things were so cheap back then, right? Because like inflation over the last century has caused $70,000 just doesn't go as far as it would go back then. But and that would be my first answer too, because like when I think about that, I've thought that before, like, oh man, like if only I could like make as much as I make now, but like 100 years ago, like man, I'd be freaking awesome. But then he says, like, when you think about it, you actually wouldn't rather have you'd actually rather have $70,000 today, because here, that's what he says. He says, the more you think about it, yeah, I would rather be middle income in 2017 than fabulously rich in 1917, because despite all the status, having, servants, people fawning over you, people taking you seriously, you've got some power, whatever. In terms of actual physical goods that I could buy, I couldn't have a good car, forget cell phones, computers, none of that, no antibiotics, very limited air conditioning, hot showers. So the things that we take like for granted today, like, we can enjoy so much more than even the crazy rich people 100 years ago today. And so, and I just thought that was like really interesting, because it goes back to that idea, right, of living like kings. Like we have, we just have it really, really good. And we just don't recognize it sometimes, which leads to an article that I read, which I can get into if you've got, after you've got something else to say. But yeah, like, just like you said, like, she's so excited about this hot water. It's like, we just, I don't know, sometimes I feel like we get so stuck in this, like, oh, like, I'm trying to make it, like, I kind of struggle with like paying rent, and like everything is so expensive. It's so hard to just like live, right? Like groceries and blah, blah. And it's so easy to get into this mindset of like, I don't have everything I want or blah, blah, blah. But if you just like, and this is why I think it's just so great, like so important to have gratitude in your life. Because if you just stop for a second and go, hold on a second, like I might not be like overflowing with excess money to do whatever I want, but I still have enough that I get to enjoy at least a hobby or two, which like people back in the day, like the fact that we have weekends, the fact that we feel entitled to weekends is pretty amazing. Cause like, I don't know when weekends started, but there was definitely a time when people just worked because they worked to survive, and they just worked all the time. And we have enough, ease of access to so many different resources for so cheap that we now can expect 2 days off a week.
Yeah. That's
pretty amazing. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. That's, it just kind of sets things into perspective.
Totally. And just the idea that these things could be taken away potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully society won't crash and burn and the bombs won't drop and nuclear holocaust, hopefully not. But, all of these things aren't like, they could be taken away anytime. And being thankful for them every day can really enrich your life. And I think we'll probably get into that more. It's just the psychological effect that it can have if you can learn to be thankful for these smaller things that you can enjoy every day.
Right. Yeah. And, so when I was doing some research, I looked up, just kind of like definitions of thankfulness or gratitude. And one of the lines I really liked was, for a definition, was conscious of benefit received. I kind of like that because it was like just being aware of the benefits that we're receiving that we don't necessarily have them because of us. For instance, like I didn't invent electricity. I didn't figure out how to do plumbing water systems to get me hot water. Like I just pay like however, less than $50 a month to enjoy those things. I guess it's so like, and when you think about it that way, I mean, it's quite, it gives you this sense of I'm enjoying something, not the kind of outside of me, I guess, which is I read this article. I discovered this guy. His name is Robert Emmons, Emmons, Emmons. I'm not sure how you say it. He's a professor of psychology at UC Davis. And he has this amazing little essay article. It's not very long, which I'm definitely going to link to. And he also has a couple YouTube links in there of him giving a speech. Highly recommend it. These videos are just like 5 minutes long. Really, really good. And he is, he's basically studied gratitude for years now. And cool. So like I'm definitely going to look more into his stuff because this was like really good. But he basically said that he kind of sees gratitude as having two components to it. So he says it's an affirmation of goodness. So when we're grateful, we affirm that there are good things in the world, gifts and benefits that we've received. And then the second part is that we recognize that the sources of this goodness are outside of ourselves. So we either acknowledge that other people or even higher powers, if you're of a spiritual mindset, give us many gifts, big and small, to help us achieve goodness in our lives. So those are his words. And I think that goes back to this idea of, like people outside so much of what we enjoy today are not because of us, not because I'm so great or whatever. It's just because other people have done amazing things and now I get to enjoy this. And in this article, like a couple key points that he hits of why he believes gratitude is good and important is one that it allows us to celebrate the present. And he talks about kind of like the way that our emotions work. Our emotion system, we like new things. So like, that's why, lots of people are kind of like, addicted to shopping or spending money. That's why it feels good to spend money to buy new things. The problem with that is that we get used to new things really quickly. So you need like that new, the newer and newer and newer to keep perpetuating that, because, you buy a new phone and then less than a year later, like you get used to it, right? You get used to I remember when I bought this phone, I bought it like, it was one of the newer models that had come out. And I remember like that night I bought it, I was like, man, this thing it's sleek, it's beautiful, it's so smooth. Like I remember just being in awe of this thing. And I've had it for like 2 years now, and I don't even give it a second thought in the day. Now I go, oh, like the iPhone 10 looks so awesome. Like, man, I wish I had the iPhone 10, because my little piece of crap now is like, useless to me. Like, it's so easy to get used to the it is mind-bogglingly freaking awesome what I'm holding in my hand right now. Like, I can do literally anything on this. I can communicate in a number of different ways to anybody in the world almost instantly. I can call people. I can take really good-looking pictures. I can search the entirety of the internet wherever, almost wherever in the world that has service. Like, it's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
We have supercomputers.
Yeah,
we have
like
these supercomputers
sitting.
in our
Yeah,
pockets.
exactly.
Insane.
And yet we go throughout our day, and how often do you think, and how often do you just kind of sit in the awe of that? Like, very, very rarely do I say most people kind of just sit back and just have some wonder about and all it takes is if you just look around and you just start noticing it left and right, like just the amazement of everything. So anyway, so he says, yeah, so we get used to these new things, but gratitude involves the appreciation of the value of something. So rather than just like kind of forgetting it, getting used to it, like you actually sit there and like appreciate rather than depreciate the value. Some other benefits, he said, gratitude. They did this big long study with like over 1,000 people, ages like 8 to 80, and basically had them keep like a gratitude journal, like 5 minutes a day for like 3 weeks. I think he said they just kept a gratitude journal. And he said like the benefits were just like, even just for like 3 weeks, were like crazy across the board. But basically gratitude, it blocks negative emotions. So things like envy, resentment, depression, regret. Basically he's like, you can't be envious and grateful at the same time. Those are two conflicting feelings. So gratitude helps to like block those things if you struggle with that. He says that grateful people are more stress resilient because it gives you perspective on your life. Like when you have gratitude of realizing like what you have, it gives you a better perspective when things go wrong, so that you can be more resilient to hard times. And then it strengthens social ties and self-worth. And he kind of talks about how like gratitude is a very like social, like relationship building type of emotion. Cause like we're saying, like if I'm enjoying electricity because of somebody else's hard work and I'm grateful for that, right? Cause gratitude being, recognizing a benefit that you've received outside of yourself. It's a very social, like, emotion. And I thought that was just kind of interesting. And his article goes in later to talk about like some of the barriers of gratitude and like how best to do it. So I'll be linking to 2 articles. There's one like 10 ways to become more grateful. He suggests a gratitude journal. And one of the things I think, which you kind of touched on a little bit, with the fact that like this stuff can be kind of taken away at any moment potentially. He says, to remember the bad. So he says, to be grateful in your current state, it is helpful to remember hard times that you have once experienced. When you remember how difficult life used to be and how far you've come, you set up an explicit contrast in your mind, and this contrast is fertile ground for gratefulness. And I thought that one was really, really good as well. And I don't think I've like consciously thought of it that way in my mind, but I've definitely seen that in my own life, where like, when I think back to a couple past jobs that I had that were like really, really, really rough, like when I think about those, I just have to like just sit and like, man, I am so grateful for where I am at now. Like when I think about like, yeah, now that I moved out and on my own, it's like, wow, like this, I'm like so grateful for where I'm at now.
Yeah. And we're talking a lot about comforts and life situations. But I mean, and I think of relationships too,
Yeah.
Nothing makes you appreciate life more than death, like when a friend or a family member dies, right? Or if you have a near death experience or something like that, you start to realize like just how rich your life is, even just on a daily basis. And the relationships you have, that, we aren't guaranteed tomorrow, like, and your friends and your loved ones aren't guaranteed tomorrow, to be thankful for them and for these relationships that you have now today, and just trying to relish them as much as possible. Yeah, kind of like what you were saying is remembering the bad, or maybe not inventing trouble necessarily, or getting stressed out about, potential trouble, but just realizing that we aren't guaranteed these things, and that if we're thankful for them today, it can really add that richness.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think a key point too to mention with gratitude is like, it's a very like down to earth mindset or like emotion, if you will, because it's not saying, it's not ignorant of the reality of life, that it can be hard and that it's not perfect. You don't have to be this type of person that like just like pretends everything's amazing all the time. Like I think we've all probably met someone like that, and you're like, dude, you live in, la la land. Like you're not really, you're just like forcing yourself emotionally to be like disconnected from what's really going on, type of a thing. And he has a good line about that. He says, where does it go? Yeah. So he says, this doesn't mean that life is perfect. It doesn't ignore complaints, burdens, hassles. But when we look at life as a whole, like take a step back and look at life as a whole, gratitude encourages us to identify some amount of goodness in our life. And I think that that's key, is like, and I think it's key of why it can be important to recognize how far you've come, to realize you've had hard times in your life, but where are you at now? And you can see that contrast, and then sit and enjoy that goodness. So that's mostly of what I wrote of his, which I thought was really great. One thought that I had about why I also think, or something else that gratitude can bring to your life, is that it can actually help you save money, save, time and resources that you spend on things. Because, just like we're talking, I mentioned with Black Friday, it's so funny to me. It's like, it's hilarious in like a really almost dark, sad way, that like the day after, like, this holiday that we have put aside for thankfulness, to gather with friends and to gather with families and to enjoy our abundance of goodness that we have, the very next day we are fighting over just stuff, I mean, you see those crazy videos, which are absolutely hilarious, but you kind of have to laugh at it. Otherwise you would just cry, because it's kind of sad in some sense when you see. I watched one last year, and it was like this mom had her kid, and her kid was like holding whatever, it was like a pressure cooker or something, right? He's like holding, and like this other lady literally walks up to this kid and like rips the package out of the kid's hand. Like, it was insane. Like, I remember like watching it and just being like this can't be real, can it? Like, can this really be real? And the sad, like, I mean, right, again, you just have to laugh, right? Because otherwise you'd cry. And because the sad reality is like, that is like this, this happens. And I think it's because people have such a just absolutely lost perspective of gratitude in their lives. And when you lose that perspective, you're looking for the new, you're always looking for the shiny, you're looking for that other emotion that also feels good. And so gratitude can help you save money and save time that you might spend on things, because you realize that what you have is really good, and gratitude can lead to contentment, which, when we're talking, and that's the other thing too, is like so much of kind of where you hear like our generation, like these just, young adult post-college millennials, is I hear a lot of complaining about like how, the job market's really hard, and like things are really expensive, and like housing is going through the roof in like places like Denver, and it's just so hard for us. People back in the day didn't have this kind of struggles, blah, blah. And while that's like, there's like some truth to that, like if you just step back for a second and look and say, okay, hold on a second, but your standard of living is also like way higher than like back when our parents graduated from college. Like there's not a person I know my age who doesn't own a smartphone. There's not a person my age who doesn't probably have like some kind of video game system and like bigger than this of a TV, right? Like it's just when you take a step back and say like, okay, yeah, things are, again, they might be hard. There might be areas that aren't perfect. There might be struggles. There might be hassles. There might be complaints, but look at your life as a whole and look at how freaking good you have it. And then say, okay, like now I can deal with whatever is hard. Right. And when you have that gratitude, thankful heart, there's just benefits all over the place. I think it helps people succeed in all areas of their life, right? Like if you're going to want to be a better parent, child, leader, friend, whatever, like having a attitude of this thankfulness, realizing what you're grateful for, having gratitude in your life, it can help so much. I've noticed it in my life. Like I said, over the last year, it's been one of the best things just to kind of like I said, once you think of it in one area, like it pops up everywhere. Like I take my dirty clothes from there, I put them in a machine right here, half an hour later I move them up, and then an hour later they're dry and clean. Like I don't have to go down to a river and scrub on this board and spend an hour and a half of my life. Like I mean, like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Totally. I love that you use the word content. I remember someone once told me, I think like a teacher or something when I was growing up, it really stuck with me what she said. She was talking about happiness versus contentment. And I don't know if you could find this distinction in the dictionary necessarily, because I looked up contentment and it says a state of happiness or satisfaction. So that would suggest that they're kind of synonyms.
Yeah.
So there's that. But the way that she described it was a lot of people in Western culture are chasing this idea of happy. And it's this kind of mountaintop experience where you finally kind of, if you saw our Between the Scenes episode, we were talking about these scenes, right? These big, like, magnum opuses, just, high points of life. And so we're all kind of chasing this idea of happy, which is very hot pink and flashy and Hollywood and sexy. But this teacher kind of drew the line between happiness and contentment, where contentment is something that you could achieve every day just by being grateful and by zooming out, like you were saying, and looking at what you have. And this is a verse from Philippians, and I think it's relevant and meaningful whether or not you're a religious person or not. Or excuse me, whether or not you're a religious person. Philippians 4 says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances.
Nice.
Whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all this through him.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that verse has always stuck with me because it's saying that it can be learned. It's not saying that it's this feeling that we wake up grateful one day and we wake up ungrateful the next, which happens. It does. But contentment or being grateful is a skill we can learn and we can practice, and we can kind of manufacture our own contentment if we try hard and we practice it,
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely agree. Like I totally agree. And that's, one of the ways that this guy suggests is write a gratitude journal. And I've tried doing that, but I'm like, journaling is just like not my thing. I try and try, I cannot do it. But he suggests writing a journal every 5 minutes a day. I actually have an app. I think it's called like the I can't remember what it's called. I'll find it here in a second. But it's just like the 5-day journal or 5-minute journal. And it's just a little app that literally walks you through, like every day. It just asks you like, okay, what are 3 things you're thankful for in the morning? Like what are 3 things you hope for tomorrow? Or just different stuff like that. And what I was grateful for, why this day was amazing. And then, how I could have done better or something like that. And I've used it a little bit. It's pretty cool. It's kind of helpful. But I think you're right that it can be learned, right? It goes back to that definition that I found of conscious of benefit received. Like it's that idea of like just being aware of
Hmm.
the benefits that you're receiving, of what you have to be grateful for. And I think that that can be learned. And I think whether it's doing a journal for yourself, if that's what helps you to like remind you on a daily basis. Another suggestion on an article I read was something about like making a vow to be grateful, like writing like I'm going to notice what I'm grateful for today or something like that, writing it on a sticky note, putting it somewhere where you're going to see it every day, you know, whatever it is. Like for me, it just, and that's the thing is, like I said, like once you notice it in one area, it'll pop up everywhere else. Like for me, it's just like, if I can recognize it in small areas of my life, it just perpetuates. And that's how like I have become a more grateful person. Not to say I'm grateful all the time. We all, you know, I always kind of struggle with that, wanting the new or like, yeah, not being content. But I think overall, like having a more grateful attitude has been awesome. Like it's been just a huge help in my life.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. And I would say I would encourage people to like really just, find a way, whatever it is, whether it's just thinking about it in one area, whether it's a journal, whatever it might be, think of a way to help yourself become more grateful or to recognize the things that you have to be grateful for and just see what it does. Just do a little experiment, try it for a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And just, just think about it. I mean, I've had, I don't know, it's just one of the greatest things because it's just there. It's always there. There's always something to be grateful for. I've had moments where like I'm just sitting around cooking food and I start thinking about it and I'm just like thinking all these different ways. And it's just like, it almost brings me to tears just how absolutely well off we are. And I think it's one of those things where like when we talk about kind of how we want to help our generation kind of shape a different perspective or just in general become better people, like this is one of those really key, characteristics or perspectives to have because it really turns things from inside to outside. And it kind of, once you realize that you've received so much and how much you have to be grateful for, it helps you to want to give. It kind of turns your perspective outward and really stop focusing so much on yourself and can give you, you know, and that can help with when we're talking about like feeling lost or not having a purpose in life or like trying to figure out what you're supposed to do or like how you can make an impact, blah, blah, blah. Like really like start these small places that we've been mentioning. And this is one of those ones where like you start here with gratefulness, you will naturally start kind of thinking outward. And that's going to be way more helpful for when you're trying to find answers to these other questions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really like that because you're right. It can give you a real sense of security, not necessarily because these things will forever be around. Like we said, they could be taken away at any time, but the fact that you're able to be content with what you have, you know, even taking into account the many complaints or problems you might have, you know, that's the thing. You don't want to just shove them away and be happy all the time. Like I'm someone who totally complains about the price of food in Vancouver. It totally ticks me off, you know, and I do complain about it. Right. But knowing that I can, you know, I have the ability to be content. And yes, I do want this other thing. And yeah, I'm reaching for this goal and I don't know if I'll get it. But the fact that I'm still content where I'm at right now, and that if things change, I can learn to be content in that situation as well.
Yeah.
That's a real security. And I like that idea that you just said of we're such an inward culture. We're always worried about ourselves and our shit and what's going on, and you know, why am I feeling this way? What do I need to change? But things that can help us be like, okay, inwardly I'm okay, you know, I'm content, and give me that perspective to slowly turn outward. What can I start giving to other people, or how can I benefit someone else's life, or how can I just love on someone because I'm so thankful for them? I think anything that gets us turning more outward than inward is a great step to take and very, very meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of stuff is also very fulfilling in and of itself. Like, and that's just so funny is like, I think so many times we're trying to figure out, because we're still like inward focused, or like we're trying to like make ourselves feel better or like do things that bring us where we want to be or whatever. And we're so inward focused when like the answer to some of these things is actually being outwardly focused, like doing something for other people that actually makes us feel good. And it's kind of funny how we're almost like just searching in the wrong place sometimes. You'd said something just a second ago that was really good. I forget what I was going to say. Oh, I was just going to mention, like, when you said, yeah, like you can still have complaints, and yeah, like you absolutely can. And like I said, because again, the thing I love about gratitude is it's so based in reality. It's a very like grounded place to be. It's not saying life's great, I never have any problems. You know, like things can still get better or whatever, but it lets you approach these things from a different aspect. And I think it helps you kind of develop a characteristic of being able to make do sometimes. Which is almost a whole nother topic in itself, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Because I think like being able to make do is like a very, very underappreciated characteristic. Like people who are like tactful and can just like make do. And actually there is a little bit of this kind of in our culture with like the whole like like minimalist kind of lifestyle, like people who like, you know, like I think of the tiny houses people, right, who they own very little, they're very like minimalistic, simplistic, like there is an aspect of that in our culture to some extent, which I appreciate, and maybe that's a topic for another time, but I think that it kind of gratefulness is one of those things that can tie into this like kind of being able to make do and contentment and everything in those lines, which I think is also very valuable. So those are
awesome.
Those are basically my thoughts on it. And like I said, I think it just really, like he said, like you can't be envious and grateful at the same time. Like I also don't think you can be like grateful and like unhappy to some extent. Like, and it's one of those, like I just said, like it's one of those things in my life that it just makes life so much better when you can just learn how to be grateful. And it's really a key to like just being a content, happy person. And I would encourage people to give it a shot. Let us know. Like I'd love to see like people's strategies for it. Like, because I feel like for me personally, it's kind of happened naturally just through different circumstances in my life, which I'm again very, very grateful for, because I didn't have to like consciously be like, I'm going to become a more grateful person. So I'd be really interested to hear somebody who like had to kind of do that and like how they did that, because I don't know, I just think that'd be really cool. Since I didn't have it happen that way for me necessarily. You know?
Totally. Yeah.
But,
and for our listeners, I love Thanksgiving because I love to hear what people are thankful for. It's just, we always go around the table, you know, at my family's house or whatever, talk about what we're thankful for. So listeners, what are you thankful for? You just had Thanksgiving. You probably have been thinking about it a little bit. I'd be interested to hear. I love hearing about that stuff and what's important to people. And so
cool. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear that as well, because we do have quite there's a lot. If I start, I'm just going to go on a rant about how great, like literally everything is about like my day, but I'm not going to do that. I kind of did that last week, actually, I think.
Went on about robots a lot and how great they are.
Yeah, dude, robots are awesome.
Robots.
They're awesome until they all turn against us and start murdering us, and Skynet happens.
Yeah, but again,
and then the bombs drop.
Things can be taken away, and we'll be content.
There we go. We can all
the
be.
Robots attack, and we're all gonna die. But at least I have my cell phone.
Yeah, there we go.
My pressure cooker.
Nice, cool. Well, like we said, we always want to hear from you guys. I don't know if it's going to be next week or maybe the week after that, but like Brandon mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we are going to do something to talk about some of the responses we've gotten from people. So send those in, or if you've got something to comment on, if you've got a topic you want us to cover, let us know. Maybe we'll address that in the next couple weeks or so, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks again for all of it. This is great. I love it.
This is awesome.
I think it's your turn for the...
Yes, I actually came prepared this time.
Ah, nice. It only took us like 13 episodes to finally have someone be like, I'm ready.
I know, right? Well, I say I'm ready, but I clearly clicked away from the page, so I'm going to have to look at it now. There we go. Okay. I saw this awesome TED Talk. I saw it a while ago, but I kind of revisited it lately. Okay. It's called, it's coming up right now, The Skill of Self-Confidence. There we go. And it is by... Okay, wait, actually, I'm just going to pause and we'll edit it so it can just sound like I knew exactly what I was talking about.
5 minutes later.
Yes,
That sounded more fake than
I
you
know
just
that
like
sounded
talking.
way more fake.
Huzzah!
I do have the answer. Okay. So this video, this TED Talk video, I'd seen it once before, but I recently watched it again. It's called The Skill of Self-Confidence by Dr. Ivan Joseph. And the whole thing is talking about how self-confidence is actually not a feeling, it's a skill, one that you can practice. Yeah, it was cool. I had a little open mic sort of performance recently where I was playing guitar and singing, which I haven't done for a long, long time, which always has made me super nervous in the past. It still does. But I kind of employed some of the techniques that he had in this video, and it was great. And a lot of the techniques he talks about having to do with self-confidence being a skill can also apply to things like gratitude and some of the things that we talk about on this podcast. Discipline, goals. He just talks about a lot preparation, repetition, positive self-talk. Just he covers all of it, and it's just a really good little 13-minute, just a little 13-minute talk about how to go about developing self-confidence and making something a habit. So if anyone's interested or looking to be more self-confident, everyone wants more of that, go check it out on YouTube, and we'll link to it in our podcast notes.
Oh yeah, definitely. This was 13. We said 13.
Yeah, episode 13.
So yeah, definitely. I would encourage people to go check this out because we're gonna have a couple articles. We'll have that. It'll be a good show notes page. So go there, relatedballet.com/episode 13. I'm thankful for you, man. Thankful to our listeners.
Thankful for you too, man.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
We'll do it next week.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
I'm free if you're free.
I'll be free.
All right.
I hope our listeners will also be free.
Yes, we hope to see you there, dear listener.
Dear listener.
We're thankful for you. Yes.
Huzzah!
I do have the answer.